In a stunning and unexpected move, Canada has abruptly closed the Alaska Highway to all U.S.-bound commercial and non-essential civilian traffic, effective immediately. The announcement sent shockwaves through both nations, catching many by surprise and leaving thousands scrambling for answers. The Alaska Highway, long known as the only land link connecting Alaska to the rest of the United States, is now completely blocked. This sudden closure has left countless trucks stranded in the snow, halting critical supply chains and disrupting the flow of goods that Alaskans depend on every day. At border crossings, lines of idle semis and freight trucks now stretch for miles in both directions. This is no ordinary traffic jam. It's a visible sign of a deep diplomatic rupture between two close allies, with economic and political consequences that are only beginning to unfold. For decades, this vital route has stood as a symbol of U.S.-Canada cooperation, friendship, and economic integration. Its construction during World War II was a testament to shared purpose and mutual reliance, linking communities and economies across the continent. Now, with the border sealed, Alaska's access to food, medicine, fuel, and other vital goods is under threat. Residents are already reporting empty shelves and growing anxiety, as fears of shortages and rising costs begin to take hold across the state. The Pentagon, too, faces urgent new questions about military logistics and strategic access to Alaska. With supply convoys halted and routes cut off, the U.S. military must quickly adapt to ensure readiness in the far north. The timing of the closure, midwinter, just after Christmas, could not be worse. Harsh weather and holiday travel have only magnified the disruption, leaving communities isolated at a critical moment. Canada's move is a calculated show of leverage, sending a clear and unmistakable message to Washington. Officials in Ottawa insist the closure is necessary, but the underlying motives remain the subject of intense debate. The world is watching closely as the U.S. scrambles to respond to this unprecedented blockade. With tensions rising and uncertainty growing, the next steps taken by both nations could reshape the future of North American relations. Ottawa cites persistent U.S. environmental and trade violations as the reason for the closure. The U.S. failed to ratify the Northern Passage Environmental Accord, which would have tightened regulations on emissions and hazardous transport along the highway. Canada claims repeated diplomatic efforts were ignored, leaving no choice but to act. The closure is indefinite, with reopening contingent on U.S. action to address environmental and trade concerns. Ottawa frames this as a matter of sovereignty and environmental protection, not aggression. Canada has weaponized a critical route, making clear that cooperation can no longer be taken for granted. For Alaska's 730,000 residents, the sudden closure of the Alaska Highway is more than just an inconvenience. It's an existential threat that shakes the very foundation of daily life in the state. The sense of uncertainty is palpable, as communities brace for the unknown. 75% of all non-fuel cargo, everything from food and medicine to construction materials, arrives by this single, vital route. The highway is the main artery that keeps Alaska supplied and connected to the rest of North America. Without it, prices for basic necessities will soar, and shortages are inevitable as businesses scramble to secure costly air and sea alternatives. The supply chain is stretched thin, and every delay ripples through the economy, affecting everyone from shop owners to families. Alaska's oil, mining, and tourism industries are paralyzed, with major projects delayed, investments put on hold, and thousands of jobs suddenly at risk. The economic impact is immediate and severe, threatening livelihoods across the state. Even the military, which relies on the highway to move heavy equipment and supplies, now faces logistical nightmares and exposed vulnerabilities. National security concerns mount as critical operations are disrupted. The closure severs personal ties as well. Families, workers, and travelers are suddenly cut off from loved ones and opportunities, stranded by a border that was once open. For many, the highway is a lifeline to the rest of the country. Its loss deepens Alaska's sense of isolation, making the vast wilderness feel even more remote and disconnected. The Canadian decision to close the highway strikes at the heart of daily life and state security, leaving Alaskans frustrated and anxious about the future. Now, Alaska is left to confront its deep dependence on a foreign-controlled artery, forced to reckon with the vulnerabilities of its unique geography and the challenges of being cut off from the lower 48. The U.S.-Canada relationship, long a model of cooperation, is now under severe strain. Trade disputes, softwood lumber, steel, digital taxes, have simmered for decades, but never before has critical infrastructure been closed. Even during past crises, like the Amchitka nuclear protests or Iraq war disagreements, the border remained open. The Alaska Highway itself was built as a joint Waitangi project, a symbol of unity in crisis. Now, that symbol is a tool of division, wielded for leverage in a modern conflict. The closure marks a historic low, transforming a shared achievement into a source of tension. The irony is stark. A road built for defense now divides two allies. Former President Trump wasted no time, blasting Canada's move as an act of betrayal and vowing retaliation. He promised that, if re-elected, Canada would pay a big price, hinting at sweeping tariffs or border closures. Trump's response is classic, framing the crisis as a test of American strength and resolve. His rhetoric pressures the current administration to act tough, injecting partisan politics into the standoff. The threat of a trade war looms, with both economies at risk. Trump's message resonates with supporters but alarms critics, who fear escalation over negotiation. The Canadian government now faces the prospect of long-term consequences, depending on U.S. political shifts. The crisis is now a flashpoint in the 2028 election cycle. The numbers reveal the true scale of the crisis, painting a stark picture of just how deeply this disruption is impacting lives and businesses across North America. In 2024 alone, over $1.5 billion worth of goods made their way up the Alaska Highway. Now, with the road closed, shifting all that freight to sea or air isn't just inconvenient, it's expensive. Costs are expected to spike by as much as 60% or even more, putting immense pressure on supply chains and businesses. Air freight, for example, is 10 times more expensive than traditional trucking. These soaring costs will inevitably be passed on to Alaskan consumers, who are already facing some of the highest prices in the country for everyday goods. U.S.-Canada trade is massive, exceeding $900 billion every year. Even a disruption that seems local at first can send shockwaves throughout the entire continent, affecting industries and jobs far beyond Alaska's borders. Supply chains are breaking down. Stranded trucks and lost cargo are leaving shelves empty and businesses struggling, not just in Alaska, but in communities thousands of miles away. Every single day the highway remains closed. The trucking industry loses an estimated $5 million due to delays, rerouting, and mounting paperwork, costs that add up quickly. The Port of Anchorage, already operating near capacity, is now overwhelmed by the sudden surge in shipments, leading to major bottlenecks and logistical headaches. This single road closure threatens billions of dollars in economic damage, widespread disruption, and the livelihoods of countless families and small businesses. Canada's action is not an isolated event. It's the culmination of years of escalating trade tensions, now reaching a breaking point with consequences felt on both sides of the border. The fallout is global. NATO allies are alarmed, while Russia and China exploit the rift for propaganda. The White House calls Canada's move unacceptable, urging a return to negotiations. Ottawa insists the U.S. must address environmental and trade grievances first. Social media in Alaska erupts with Harsh Alaska Stranded, as residents share empty shelves and organize protests. In the lower 48, confusion and frustration mount, especially in border states. Canadian public opinion is split. Some back Ottawa's stand, others fear U.S. retaliation. On Capitol Hill, Republicans demand harsh measures. Democrats push for diplomacy. Political division in Washington complicates the response, risking a prolonged standoff. The pressure for resolution is intense, but the path forward remains uncertain. The next steps are critical, either de-escalation through back-channel diplomacy or a spiral into trade war. The U.S. could fast-track environmental talks or appoint a special envoy. Canada might reopen the highway to essential goods as a gesture. If talks fail, both sides could impose tariffs or close more border crossings, risking severe economic damage. The crisis exposes deep vulnerabilities: Alaska's dependence on a foreign-controlled route and Canada's willingness to use leverage. Both nations must confront these realities and seek a durable solution. The likely outcome is a tense negotiation, with short-term fixes and a long road to rebuilding trust. The immediate priority: restore essential supplies to Alaska. This unprecedented shutdown is a stark reminder: no alliance, however close, is immune to crisis.